Chapter 8. The Boss. After graduation from Woodward Academy in Atlanta in May of 1972, I returned to New Jersey. As told in the last chapter, my first job at the Garden State Arts Center working backstage got me close to the stage, but not quite where I wanted to be. At a James Gang show that year at the Sunshine Inn Concert Hall in Asbury Park, Steel Mill was the opener. Although I didn't know it at the time, it was one of Bruce Springsteen's early bands. Another time, there was a free outdoor show at Brookdale Community College in Lincroft, New Jersey, the college I would attend in the fall. Both Springsteen and Southside Johnny were hanging out at the side of the stage. It seemed like if there was music going on somewhere in the county, Bruce was involved in it. That next September of 1972 had me enrolled at Brookdale. It was a progressive school with a different grading system. The grades were credit with high honors, CHH, for A, credit with honors, CH, for B, and credit, C, for C. D was the same as an F, but you really had to go out of your way to fail in this school. My courses that year consisted of music, broadcast journalism, psychology, and English. The instructors were very competent, but also very laid back. The atmosphere was a far cry from the uptight, leftover military experience I had just endured for the last 5 years in Atlanta. My plan, however, because of the music, was to eventually get back to Georgia. Truthfully, I wasn't really sure how that would happen, or even if it would. Regardless, it was certain that my future would not be in New Jersey. While attending BCC, I met a couple of brothers, Bruce and Glenn Benson, that played guitar and bass respectively. Bruce, recently home after serving in the U.S. Army in Okinawa, was attending school on the GI Bill. We met in music class, became good friends, and later formed a band called Child in Time. The name was taken from one of my favorite songs at the time by the group Deep Purple. We were playing Allman Brothers tunes quite well as songs by Poco, Jethro Tull, The Beatles, Traffic, and just great music from our era. There were some cool gigs, including 2 concerts at Brookdale, a senior prom, as well as a gig at a little joint in Asbury Park called the Student Prince. As it turns out, this was Bruce Springsteen's house gig. The Prince just happened to be the place where the late saxophonist Clarence Clemens first made his acquaintance with Bruce and jammed with the E Street Band for the first time. That club has been immortalized in Springsteen folklore as the actual place where the boss and the big man first jammed. The story goes that the door blew open during a winter storm and the shadow of Clarence appeared. The rest is history. For us, we were just there for a Sunday night when Bruce was off. While my band was also looking for some other high school gigs, we inquired at the office of nearby Christian Brothers Academy. The school was interested in talking to us, but the lady in the office said that the music for their next event had already been booked. She couldn't remember what band had been hired, but she was kind enough to go grab one of the posters to find out. We were just a little bit too late. Springsteen already had the gig. Although my band, Child in Time, really started sounding quite good, the fact was, its existence would be short-lived. My sights were set on Georgia, but if anything could have kept me back in Jersey, these friends I made my first year home could have altered my course. That's not to say it didn't cross my mind, because it did. It was just important to stick to my guns and stay focused. Later that winter, an unfamiliar song played on WNEW-FM in New York. It was from Bruce Springsteen's new album, Greetings from Asbury Park. His new release, Blinded by the Light, didn't sound anything like the guitar-driven stuff I had heard this wild hippie guitar player do before. It was loaded with crazy rhyming lyrics, making the music appear overshadowed. Not that it wasn't good, it was, but just different from the familiar Springsteen I knew. He was being compared to Bob Dylan and other folk artists. Where were these analogies coming from? Supposedly, when Bruce signed with Columbia Records, he went in as a solo artist, something he had been only doing for 2 months as opposed to performing with a band for 9 years. I left New Jersey in June of 1973 to head back south to Atlanta. At that time, the music scene there was strong. It was then slated to become a music mecca, according to the press. With all that transpired musically from Atlanta, I wanted to be immersed in whatever it was that was causing all of this great talent to blossom from the South. An early opportunity to join the staff at the Georgia State University FM radio station enabled me to be around the music scene. It also gave me a chance to gain radio experience which would benefit me later in my broadcasting career. One day, while I was working in the production room at WRAS-FM, I came across a copy of Bruce's Greetings from Asbury Park album hidden among a stack of practically discarded production records. After asking those around if they had heard of Bruce Springsteen, everybody shook their heads no. After also landing a far-fetched opportunity of teaching guitar lessons in Atlanta, I eventually opened my own teaching studio. Sometime in 1974, I remember Springsteen performing at a club called Richards. Unfortunately, I found out about the show after the fact only by seeing Bruce's name on the marquee a day late. Sometime in mid-1975, Bruce had just released the album Born to Run. I managed to get a local paper to give me permission to interview Bruce and to catch the show. The music editor of the paper caught his first night's show and called me the next day. He said he had never been moved by a show as much as he was knocked out by Springsteen. The publication left my name at the door, telling me that I should really enjoy the show, but to try to get some good material, including some time to talk to Bruce. When I showed up at Alex Cooley's Electric Ballroom in Atlanta, I was greeted very rudely by Bruce's road manager at the dressing room door. After I explained to him why I was there, he just maintained his dirty look, but he reluctantly let me head down the stairs to Bruce's dressing room. When I got there, Bruce was sitting down tuning a Fender Electric 12-string guitar. He was pretty focused on that. A man on a mission. It was obvious and understandable that I may not have his full attention. I mentioned my desire to talk to him for a printed piece, but he just said that he had to continue tuning. When I did tell him I was a Jersey boy and mentioned some familiar places, he would nod cordially. I mentioned the Student Prince, the little Asbury Park club discussed earlier where he had the house gig, and that I had played once. Bruce was very soft-spoken and polite during the brief conversation, but I could tell that he was preoccupied with this show. When I figured I got all I was going to get, I politely said goodbye, wished him good luck, and went back upstairs to watch the show. Even though I wasn't there long, I realized on the way back up to the club from the dressing room that I had just gone one-on-one with the boss. Contrary to his laid-back and calm demeanor in the dressing room, the E Street Band hit the stage and blew the doors off the Electric Ballroom. It was breathtaking. Sometime during his show, he told a story about playing back at the Student Prince in Asbury Park. As he mentioned it, he gave me a glance over to the side of the stage where I was standing, letting me know we were on the same page. Again, there were no photos or witnesses, but I knew this would be something I would remember for a long time. I knew this guy would be big, but I don't think I really thought how big he would become. Soon after that, Bruce was on the covers of Time and Newsweek, being touted as the future of rock and roll. Well, that future has come to pass, and Bruce still keeps creating and reinventing himself. Although I was only 22 years old at the time and was making a living in music through teaching, performing, and in radio, I still had no idea what was in store for me.